school's out, blame corona, but I still got some science I could show ya. No class, no school, that's cool, throw the class on the YouTube. Even if they shut the school down, I'll get that knowledge anyway somehow. Real scholars won't stop for corona. Tune in for that science takeover.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Miss Finney's science class. Today, I'm glad to say hello to all the HB Warriors, especially those that were there for last night's event. We had a game night. If you weren't able to tune in last night, I know you'll be able to tune in at the next game night. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone there. Right now, we are up to 142 subscribers. Yay! I wanted to tell you guys thank you for always tuning in and for continuing to learn science from your home to my home. Let's get started. So today we're talking about the cell theory, and let's get into it. At the very top here of the reading, it says, the development of the microscope led to huge advances in science. Entire industries were formed around making new and better microscopes. Microscopes allowed scientists to start looking at tiny things like drops of pond water. What do you think they found if they were looking at drops of pond water? I mean, have you ever looked at drops of pond water? Have you ever gone out to a pond and just took something magnifying glass with you and looked at it? Well, they did, all right? To their surprise, early cell biologists found tiny creatures inside a single drop of water. Woo! That makes you think, what is in the drops of water that are outside? Woo! Okay. Microscopes allowed them to discover that a living thing could be made of just one cell. We know that to be called a unicellular organism. I see you. I see you at home. Yep. Yep. Two scientists working in the 1830s, Matthias Schleiden and Theodor Schwann, put together the data from the new field of cell research to create a scientific theory known as cell theory. The initial theory has been revised and added to, but it remains largely the same. Cell theory can be summarized as 1. All living things are made of one or more cells. This is a concrete fact that they've put into the cell theory. 2, the structure and function of a living thing is determined by its one cell or all of its cells working together. Okay? 3, all cells come only from existing cells. So we have 3 facts within the cell theory. We want to look at a video that just gives us a little more information. How in the world did this cell theory come about? I mean, was this a simple process? You know, was it just 2 scientists that just came up with this idea and was like, wow, or was there an interesting story? You'd be surprised. Let's take a look. This video is titled, The Wacky History of Cell Theory.
One of the great things about science is that when scientists make a discovery, it's not always in a prescribed manner, as in only in a laboratory under strict settings with white lab coats and all sorts of neat science gizmos that go beep. In reality, the events and people involved in some of the major scientific discoveries are as weird and varied as they get. My case in point, the weird history of the cell theory. There are 3 parts to the cell theory. 1, all organisms are composed of one or more cells. 2, the cell is the basic unit of structure and organization in organisms. And 3, all cells come from pre-existing cells. To be honest, this all sounds incredibly boring until you dig a little deeper into how the world of microscopic organisms and this theory came to be. It all started in the early 1600s in the Netherlands, where a spectacle maker named Zacharias Janssen is said to have come up with the first compound microscope, along with the first telescope, Both claims are often disputed, as apparently he wasn't the only bored guy with a ton of glass lenses to play with at the time. Despite this, the microscope soon became a hot item that every naturalist or scientist at the time wanted to play with, making it much like the iPad of its day. One such person was a fellow Dutchman by the name of Anton van Leeuwenhoek, who heard about these microscope doohickeys, and instead of going out and buying one, he decided to make his own. And it was a strange little contraption indeed, as it looked more like a tiny paddle the size of a sunglass lens. If he had stuck two together, it probably would have made a wicked set of sunglasses that you couldn't see much out of. Anywho, once Leeuwenhoek had his microscope ready, he went to town looking at anything and everything he could with them, including the gunk on his teeth. Yes, you heard right. He actually discovered bacteria by looking at dental scrapings, which, when you keep in mind that people didn't brush their teeth much, if at all, back then, he must have had a lovely bunch of bacteria to look at. When he wrote about his discovery, he didn't call them bacteria as we know them today, but he called them animalcules because they looked like little animals to him. While Leeuwenhoek was staring at his teeth gunk, he was also sending letters to a scientific colleague in England by the name of Robert Hooke. Hooke was a guy who really loved all aspects of science, so he dabbled in a little bit of everything, including physics, chemistry, and biology. Thus it is Hooke who we can thank for the term the cell, as he was looking at a piece of cork under his microscope, and the little chambers he saw reminded him of cells, or the rooms monks slept in their monasteries. Think college dorm rooms, but without the TVs, computers, and really annoying roommates. Hooke was something of an underappreciated scientist of his day, something he brought upon himself as he made the mistake of locking horns with one of the most famous scientists ever, Sir Isaac Newton. Remember when I said Hooke dabbled in many different fields? Well, after Newton published a groundbreaking book on how planets move due to gravity, Hooke made the claim that Newton had been inspired by Hooke's work in physics. Newton, to say the least, did not like that, which sparked a tense relationship between the two that lasted even after Hooke died, as quite a bit of Hooke's research, as well as his only portrait, was misplaced due to Newton. Much of it was rediscovered, thankfully, after Newton's time, but not his portrait, as sadly no one knows what Robert Hooke looked like. Fast forward to the 1800s, where two German scientists discovered something that today we might find rather obvious, but helped tie together what we now know as the cell theory. The first scientist was Matthias Schleiden, a botanist who liked to study plants under a microscope. From his years of studying different plant species, it finally dawned on him that every single plant he had looked at were all made of cells. At the same time, on the other end of Germany was Theodor Schwann, a scientist who not only studied slides of animal cells under the microscope and got a special type of nerve cell named after him, but also invented rebreathers for firefighters and had a kickin' pair of sideburns. After studying animal cells for a while, he too came to the conclusion that all animals were made of cells. Immediately, he reached out via snail mail, as Twitter had yet to be invented, to other scientists working in the same field, and it was Schleiden who got back to him, and the two started working on the beginnings of the cell theory. A bone of contention arose between them, as for the last part of the cell theory, that cells come from pre-existing cells, Schleiden didn't exactly subscribe to that thought, as he swore cells came from free cell formation, where they just kind of spontaneously crystallized into existence. That's when another scientist, named Rudolf Virchow, stepped in with research showing that cells did come from other cells. Research that was actually, how to put it, borrowed without permission from a Jewish scientist by the name of Robert Remak, which led to two more feuding scientists. Thus, from teeth gunk to torquing off Newton, crystallization to Schwann cells, the cell theory came to be an important part of biology today. Some things we know about science today may seem boring, but how we came to know them is incredibly fascinating. So if something bores you, dig deeper. It's probably got a really weird story behind it somewhere.
All right, that entertaining video just goes to show that it's not always so simple to get to this place in science with different facts. You know, it usually takes an interesting journey. All right, so for the cell theory, that was definitely a story. Talk about drama. Woo! All right, so here we have the two that were responsible. Let's see if I can bring this down just a snag, or enlarge it rather here. Okay. Two that were largely responsible for developing cell theory in the 1830s. The work of other scientists also contribute to the scientific theory, as we now know, right? So I want to make sure we understand it wasn't just those two guys, but they were definitely largely responsible. So let's talk about it. First point, all living things are made of one or more cells. As you have learned, organisms are made of one or more cells. If they're made of one cell, it's called a unicellular organism. If they're made of more than one cell, it's called a multicellular organism. Good job. The cell is the smallest unit that can be said to be alive. If you were to compare a thin slice of a diamond, which is not alive, and the tissue of a plant stem under a microscope, you will find that the plant tissue is made of cells while the diamond is not. This is true for every living thing. All right. Number 2 in cell theory, the structure and function of a living thing is determined by its one cell or all of its cells working together. You have learned that multicellular organisms are made up of many cells with different shapes and functions, while unicellular organisms are made up of one cell with one shape and function. In both of these cases, it is the one cell alone or the combination of all of the cells working together that determines the organism's particular shape and function. For example, human skin has the function that it has because of the shape and function of the cells that make up the skin. The skin might not be able to protect a human from germs and the environment if the cells were a different shape. All of the cells all over the body working together is what makes the body the shape it is and what allows it to function the way it functions. In a unicellular organism, it is only the one cell that gives the organism its shape and function. All right? So the structure and function of a living thing is determined by its one cell or all of its cells working together. Structure and function determined by its one cell or all of its cells working together. All right, here we go. Third piece, last piece in cell theory. All cells come from existing cells. All right, so they didn't just pop up. As you have learned, both cells of multicellular organisms and cells of unicellular organisms can divide. Right? Cells are the basic unit for reproduction and development. For example, when an unicellular organism divides, it becomes two unicellular organisms. To prepare for cell division, a cell will often grow larger, copy all of its parts, and then split into two. Even multicellular organisms develop from one cell. For example, a fertilized human egg cell will divide and eventually develop into a fully grown human. Can you believe that? We were all initially one egg cell. Interesting. Look at you now. Look how far you've come. Don't ever let anybody make you feel like you have not accomplished a lot. Just think about that. You were once just one fertilized egg cell. Look at you now. You know what I mean? Ah, beautiful thing, beautiful thing. We've come a long way. Here's a visual. All right, so here it says cells come from other cells is the third part of cell theory, right? Cell division is the process of one cell dividing into two. So right here we have one cell. It's dividing into two. And here we have it. In this illustration, you can see that the cell on the left first grows larger, and then it splits into two cells shown on the right. All right, so that's just an example of the third part of cell theory. Let's check for understanding. Select the appropriate term for each blank. All right. In the 1830s, let's shrink this down just a snag so we can get everything on one screen. All right. In the 1830s, two scientists put together data to create a new scientific theory known as, choose a term. I'm going to go with here. You make a selection, anything that you like. Right here, cell theory. Okay, cool. All right. This theory says that the cell is the blank unit that can be said to be alive. I'm going to go with, make a choice. Share your voice. You make a difference. Oh, you said smallest. Oh, okay. Got you. Next, choose a term. Blank determines an organism's particular shape and function in addition to being the basic unit for blank. Here we go. What do you think? Any choice here? Oh, with cells. Okay. In addition to being the basic unit for, we're gonna go with here, production, maybe? Is what you said? You sure you agree with all this? Yeah? Let's see. I don't know. Maybe we need to fix something. I don't know. All right. Let's see. I don't know. Oh, we're good. Look at you. Okay, nice. So let's read this. In the 1830s, two scientists put together data to create a new scientific theory known as cell theory. The theory says that the cell is the smallest unit that can be said to be alive. Cells determine an organism's particular shape and function in addition to being the basic unit for reproduction. All right. Questions. Number 1, how did the engineering advancement of developing microscopes affect the field of biology? In your own words, how did it affect the field of biology? Think back to the video. All right, cool. So, scientists learned that there were tiny creatures that they could not previously see without a microscope. That's big. All right, and here, number 2, wants you to share the main parts of the cell theory. So it says write a short summary in your own words about each of the 3 main parts of cell theory. So for the first part, we know that all living things are made of one or more cells. Second part, the structure and function of a living thing is determined by its one cell or all of its cells working together. And last piece, all cells come only from existing cells. All right, let's put this into a song, see if we can keep this in our minds a little better. All things are made of one or more cells. The structure and function of a living thing is determined by its one cell or all of its cells working together. All cells come only from existing cells. All living things are made of one or more cells. The structure and function of a living thing is determined by its one cell or all of its cells working together. All cells come only from existing cells. Ooh, 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 Okay. All living things are made one or more cells. The structure and function of a living thing is determined by its one cell, or all its cells work together. All cells come only from 6 cells. Ooh, 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 ooh. Okay, I stopped. I got it. I stopped. All right, so here we go. Summarize this in your own words. Here's a possible answer. To be considered alive, an organism needs to be made of at least one cell. If something doesn't have at least one cell, it's not even alive. Fact 1. Here we go. Since all living things are made of at least one cell, the shape and function of that one cell or cells is what gives its whole organism its shape and function. All right? 3, cells make copies of themselves and divide into new cells. This ability is what allows for the origin of all cells. 3 points, summarizing your own words. All right? If you like to pull from what's here, you may. See if I can enlarge this to a point where it's all on one screen. All right, there we go. So hopefully that helps. All right. So that is our wrap up for this particular lesson. Let's close out. If you have any questions, any comments, please send an email or write in the comments section. I'll get right back to you. All right, let's close out with our outro. Hey, 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 hey. Close out with our outro. Hey, it's been fun. It's been real. We break it down and pick up science skills. Give yourself 2 claps just for tuning in. Come back, meet tomorrow, we can learn again. Oh, it's been fun. It's been real. We break it down and pick up science skills. Give yourself 2 claps just for tuning in. Come back, meet tomorrow, we can learn again. See you all tomorrow. Peace.